That ain't going nowhere. Hey, it's Brock here from Rock Hill Farms, and I'm pretty excited about what's in this box. So I got my new 3/4 ton Ram truck about 3 months ago, and if you're new to the channel, I haul with a dump trailer, I pull a skid steer and a tractor, and I do work, off-road a little bit, running my machines, and so you just never know when you're gonna get stuck. So even before the truck came in, because I ordered it and waited 4 months on the truck, so even before the truck came in, I started looking at how I want to put a winch on that truck. Now I have the mobile winch set up that goes on a receiver, so I can put it on the back of the truck and then run a wire up to the front, but that's not ideal, and you're not always going to want to pull from the back. So what I've done here is ordered a front bumper add-on that houses a winch, and I looked at all the different options, the different pricing options, and where I wanted to be on the price, because I care what it looks like to a certain extent, but primarily I'm about functionality and getting a good solid mount. Okay, if you had eagle eyes, you could see right here, this is from Fab Fours as the brand. Looks like this is more along the lines of mounting hardware and accessories. Got some hooks. Another hook. The opposite side, and some bolts. Dun dun dun! Alright guys, for all of you that have seen my truck, what's your first impression? Is that going to look mean going down the road, or am I going to look like a dork? I already am a dork, so I guess it doesn't matter. Alright, so I'll get this pallet out of here and pull the truck in, and we'll get started putting this sucker on. If anybody wondered, that thing's solid, pretty darn heavy. I've done step 1 of this installation, which is to remove the tow hooks and put in this mounting bracket. And I did the first side so I could see how it was done, and now I'm going to show you on the second side. So before we get back to the installation, I'm going to tell you a couple of reasons why I went with Fab Fours. Number 1 is it's not a bumper replacement. I gave a lot of thought to this. About the two main options are to replace the bumper with a new bumper that has a winch inside of it or on the outside of it. The second option is to mount a system on, like I'm doing right now, that goes on top of the bumper. And I gave that a lot of thought. I decided I did not want to remove my bumper. Personal preference, right? But you got all these sensors wired in, and the camera and all that sort of thing, and I didn't want to take all that wiring off, because if I decided to sell this truck and someone didn't want this bumper, they would just unbolt these and put the tow hooks back on. Very easy to go back. Another factor was affordability. This is an $1,100 bumper, and you can spend $2,500, $3,000 on it. Now the winch mount that I got is what they call a full frame, but there's a larger one that goes all the way across here and has a brush guard. It protects your headlights and all that. I decided I really didn't want to add that weight to it, and I just prefer the look of the smaller bumper. There were a couple other brands that I looked at that didn't have compatibility. Some of the hidden winches were not available with the diesel 3/4 tons because there wasn't room behind it for the winch, and so it was an extensive search that led me to these, and all the reviews I've seen is positive on them. The weld quality looks excellent. It seems to be a well thought out product. Fab Fours is the company that makes it, and they are a smaller portion of Warn, which make Warn winches. And so obviously there's a good name backing it, as Warn is kind of the premier winch brand. I also really like that it's an easy install. So this is my factory hook. You can see it right here. It's got 2 bolts that go through here and here. You remove those 2 bolts and you have the same 2 bolts right here. And this is all that you really have to do. And you put one of these on each side and your winch mount sets on that. Very simple install. There's one other step that I didn't mention. This right here, they have you remove this with 2 bolts right here. It's directly below the bolts for your tow hooks. And I believe the only reason you remove that is to get access to those bolts. The instructions don't tell me if I put this back on or not, but it looks like I can, so I'm probably going to put this back on. As I started this, I really was thinking I was going to shine the light up under there, but I don't think you're going to be able to see anything as I take this apart. I will jump under there and try to show it to you. We'll see what we get. Okay, so as we climb under the truck, this bolt and this bolt are for the tow hook, and these 2 bolts are for this other bracket you remove. I think the reason they have you remove this is so you can get to the nut on the back side of this, which you won't be able to probably see, but it's straight up here. If that footage comes out, you just saw where this bolts in. The only difficulty I had in putting this side in is with 1 bolt not having access for my impact. The first 3 bolts, I just put this on, zipped them out, and that was it. The 4th bolt, I went to put this on, and this is too wide, and it was hitting a bracket, and so I couldn't get this in. If I put first I tried an extension. The back of the impact was hitting on the bumper, or on this bracket right here for this fog light. Even a deep well socket that would push this out enough meant I couldn't get the impact in. Since I couldn't get the impact on, I got a ratchet. Well, I gave it everything I had, and I could not turn this ratchet. I thought, just for the heck of it, let's try one of these little impact drivers. That went on there and fit, but didn't have the torque. So then I got a breakover bar, and I put the breakover bar on, and I was able to turn it up till I ran out of room, and then I couldn't get this on to the next spot. And I still couldn't turn it with the ratchet. The combination that worked for me was to switch from a 6-point socket to a 12 and use the breakover bar, and I was able to get that last bolt out. Alright, I'm gonna get this other side swapped out, and I'll be right back. If you hear any cussing, I don't know who's doing it. It's not me. I showed you that you've got 2 bolts for this. Bolts go through like this, and on the back side the nut is captive by this L-shaped bracket. Now on one side, when you run that nut down, this drops into the frame and stops it from turning. On the second nut, when you run this down, I believe it seems to be captive against the bottom of this. Now on my exact truck, if you see the difference here, where this nut is supposed to be captive, it will no longer fit in between this and the frame because there should be a cutout right here. Now, the possibility that I'm just not as smart as I think I am, and that there should be a way to get that in there. But from what I can tell, it's not going to work. Now on that nut that wouldn't fall in the way it wanted it to, instead of putting it on with the L like this, the way they want you to, I just put this nut on backward. And when I did this, this spun around and it hit another piece of metal on the frame and still locked it up, and I was able to run it down. It didn't cause me any problem at all. But if you're doing the exact same model of truck as me, something you could possibly run into. Frickin'. I think Charlie Brown's mother's under here. Pull that guy out. One bolt in. Two bolts in. At this point, the only thing we've got to do is lift the bumper up. It's got holes in the bottom of it. You put these bolts right here through these hooks, through the bumper, and they thread in to these mounting brackets. It calls this a two-person job, and I think it's right. So I've got a helper here, and we'll get this sucker on. Does it go under there? It has to, yeah. Just guide me in. Can't see. Don't drop this on my face, okay?
I won't, I promise.
Because we're not lined up right now. There we are. I got one started. Hey, don't mind me, I'm just crawling under you. This is not the how-to. This might be the how not to. Alright, we're lined up. One started. I should probably put that advisory in there. Don't crawl under it while it's still hanging there, but it'll be alright. I think I'm legally required to say that ain't going nowhere. I would say you could not have a much easier install. Very simple, straightforward. And there's no instructions for how to put the winch on this, so I'll probably do it the most awkward way there is. But it's just got the 4 standard bolts that are on any winch mounting bracket. And there's big cutouts in the bottom of this so that you can stick a socket up through there. I think the only awkward part is you've got the little nuts that are inside of the winch, and you got to keep those in place while you set the winch down in there and get the cable poked through. But nothing too bad. I think the next thing I should do is I'll free spool this, pull a little bit of cable out. Now, I'm going to go ahead, well, I'll go ahead and bolt the winch down, and then I'll just have to put the lead on the front. Okay, so this is not as difficult as I thought. You can easily still reach in here to put the nuts in. Might just have you move the winch a little bit side to side until the holes are lined up, because we're not yet. The idea will be it's going to be centered, so try to work it towards centered, and I'll be able to see it when it's there. Whoop! I could see one of them. Move it that way just a little bit. Whoop! Okay, I can get one bolt in right there. Okay. In terms of the torque setting for these bolts on the winch, it says 2 ugga-duggas. So you gotta, and then it's tight. That one's good. If you break your ratchet, that was too tight. If the winch falls off, it wasn't tight enough, so somewhere right in between. As far as the winch I'm using, this winch is undersized for what I'm doing. It really, I should have a minimum 12,000 pound winch on here, and for today I'm installing what I own, which is an 8,000 pound Warren winch. I've also got a 12,000 pound Champion winch, but it's on my trailer and I want to leave it there. So hopefully the plan is to upgrade this to a bigger Warren winch. If you guys missed that video, I actually got my truck stuck last week, and this was on order, and it was stuck with the trailer hooked up to it. Would have been the perfect time, but I'm sure I'll stick it again. Alright, let's hook up some power. All it is, on the battery here, we've got a positive and a negative there. And these are the quick connect cables I bought to run this to the back of the truck, so it's like 25 foot long. Totally unnecessary. I'm gonna get some shorter ones. I think I may even have a shorter one, but it's probably too short. Anyway, I'll get a shorter cable for this. I could route this down and plug it in and have it connected all the time, but I think instead I'm gonna get a cable that's exactly the right length, and when I need to use the winch, I'll have that coiled under here and just pull it out. All right, so we're all hooked up. Moment of truth. It's able to pull one medium-sized son-in-law with this 8,000 pound winch. Now that time, he was letting it pull him in. This time, hold it tight and we'll see if it can drag the truck. No? I guess he's not that stout. So, it's nighttime and it's raining. Normally with a winch or something, I'll hook it up and then put the truck in neutral or drag it or something, but it doesn't really prove anything. So, this was an easy install. I think it's a nice looking bumper, and it's going to provide some protection on the front of the truck. Really happy with it. I appreciate you taking time to watch this video. I'll put links over here to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.